So, it's another session of Autumn Horizons. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today again. Today we have a one of my favorite speakers. Know her personally, and I think she's going to really impress everyone and have you full of questions at the end. So let's get started. As you know, my name is Issa White. I'm the program director of Austin Urban Technology Movement, and my job is to basically introduce you guys to people within the tech industry that you don't normally hear from, but you can see yourself in their stories. So, as you know, the purpose of Autumn and the driving force of Autumn is to improve stats like this. So, as you see, the US population under the Black and Latino percentages for 2017 shows 13 and 18% respectively, but that doesn't reflect in the population of those in the tech industry. So our job is to share with you information, whether it be in the stories of some of our career experts, our tech experts, and their matriculation through the tech industry, or to provide cohorts and education, as well as job opportunities throughout our program. So without further, this is some of our previous experiences when we were quote unquote normal back when we were visiting KIP Austin as well as KIP Austin schools. So we were just bringing this platform to the digital era and making sure we're still able to share this information with you through Zoom. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you Antoinette Asemota.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you, Isa, for inviting me to be a speaker and just to kind of just chat with you guys about my journey into the tech space. So I have it set up a little bit unconventional, but I do want it to be a conversation. And I don't have a very linear path to the tech world. And so a lot of spaces that you guys might be in or what you're thinking about, is it too late? How can I get into the tech industry? I'll be more than happy to share what my path looks like and just how you can pivot in order to get into this pretty much amazing industry where you can go anywhere if you're in here. And so super excited to talk to you guys today. So a little bit about me. I have 3 other siblings. I'm the second oldest. And so my dad is half Nigerian. My mom's just from the States. And so when we were growing up, we could be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. And luckily, my sister became a doctor. So I got a little bit of space. My brother's finishing his engineering degree, and I did not. I decided to be the free child, which wasn't great for a while. So it's super exciting. My brother's here with me in Austin. My sister's in Florida, and my dad and my mom and my other brother, they're back in Washington State where I grew up. So my biggest fan and what I work for is my dog. Her name is Winter Rain. She's a German Shepherd Husky, and she's my life. Adopted her about 2 years ago. And so you work hard for something, and I work hard for my dog so she can have the best life. Other hats and other roles that I've had at Facebook previously, where I know Issa from, I led our Black Employee Resource Group. So I was a co-lead for that for 2 years, focused on building community, internal and external, as well as mentoring across different platforms. I get mentor asked across LinkedIn from events that I do, and I take on as much as I can, just kind of help to get people into and just to navigate, to get interviews first, second pass, or actually just land roles. And it's very exciting when we do that. Also, I'm a big ally of the LGBTQI A plus community. Really important to understand the intersectionality between our experiences, either Black, Hispanic, LGBTQ, where we actually have very similar experiences. So it's really great to become an ally to something that maybe doesn't directly affect you, but you guys still have a passion and a movement to make change in the industry where you see that change needs to happen. So I put down here, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's my first and last name, which is also in my Zoom. So feel free to do that. If you don't write a message, say you were here, because I get a lot of requests, so at least I know who you are. So a little bit about my education. So I actually graduated high school in 2001. Second oldest, yeah, it's a long time now, almost 20 years ago. So I graduated high school in Washington State, and I actually went straight to community college. So in 2004 is when I graduated community college, taking classes, seeing what I liked. And then I took a break, traveled, um, just wanted to, I call it live. So there was no clear plan. I'm just, when I hit 28, I was going to figure it out. So 28 happened, surprisingly enough. And I didn't finish a 4-year degree. So I went back to school, to Western Washington University. And much to my dad's chagrin, I was an English literature major with secondary education emphasis. So I planned on teaching at a community college, was like my goal. Right after I graduated from there, I actually, outside the tech space, I graduated in 2014. In March and April, I actually found a pull tab that said, have you ever thought about teaching abroad? And I said, no. So I actually just left and went to Thailand, and I taught English in Thailand. And that was a great experience. I'll talk more in like the education slide. Currently, and when I say currently, this week is my first week. I actually started at USC, Marshall School of Business, to get my MBA. So I'm doing the remote 2-year program. And so that started actually orientation tonight. So that's very exciting. So I'll be doing that while I also work at TikTok. Work experience in the tech space, I actually started in Uber, and I'll go in a little bit more detail of what that looked like, because I know sometimes there's this look like you got in tech and it was great. No, I got into tech as a contractor, working crazy hours, answering tickets. But that was my entry into the space where I knew I wanted to be. So I got into Uber at 2015. The next year, I actually, about 1 year and 3 months later, Facebook reached out on LinkedIn for a role in Texas. I was in Phoenix, Arizona at the time. And of course, I took it. So I was there for 4 years where I focused on operations. And then I moved into a space that I love, which is new products, where I kind of wanted to be. And as of August of this year, TikTok reached out through a referral and actively recruited me. And I love a good recruit. So as of August, I've been at TikTok in our global business solutions team, leading our North America product launches and operationalizing those with our global counterparts. So that's a little snippet there. Some of my strengths, I think it's really important to strengths, and I'll kind of touch on that, is like, what are you actually good at? And I tell people when we talk about tech, I'm never going to be a coder. I can write SQL now, kind of, because I had to. HTML, see, it's there, but it's not my strength. What am I actually good at? Double down on what you're good at, and then leverage that to get in the space. You don't have to be everybody else. You just have to be really good at what you know you're good at. So some of my strengths, and I'll ask the group, does anyone know what like activator means? Or if you had to guess, and I'm gonna pick a name, the first names that come to me. Actually, Desiree is my middle name. So let's do Desiree Martinez. I can't see the rest of your last name. If Desiree Martinez, then we're gonna go to the second Desiree. Don't do that to her. So if you had to think of activator, so activator as a strength, what that means is that you can just go and you can activate. So like activate is pretty much inside the name, where you don't need to know every single steps in order to start working on a project. So these are for people who are more like, they can take an idea and run with it versus, and then they'll handle issues as they come along. And so, yeah, I know you have some strengths. Yes. We will unmute all of you. So for activator, yeah, it's pretty much just do it, take the initiative, and that's really important in the tech space. Is that how anyone here, is that one of you guys' strengths when I talk about this? You're like, you can write inside the chat, be like, yeah, that's me. That's something I resonate with. Add it when I talk about it. Another one that's really, that I have as a strength is called woo. Yes. Nice. So WOO, does anyone know what WOO stands for? It's almost like the name, like woo, woo. I'm gonna keep
You're
doing
like a
it.
cheerleader.
Well, kind of, yes.
Kind
But
of.
like, how do people feel about cheerleaders? Well, okay, how cheerleaders I bring like why are cheerleaders necessary, or what do they do? It's like a
I want to
loose
give all the
correlation,
answers.
but I was rolling with it. So a
Uh-huh.
woo means like winning others over. That's kind of what it means. It means that when you are in conversations with people, they can be in different teams, different leaders. You're able to have a conversation with them, and they will gravitate towards you, and they're more likely to buy in. Yes, wow factor. Yeah, there you go. They're most likely to buy into what you're saying, which is super useful. Just make sure you're saying something useful though. But like, yes, they will buy into what, what you're saying. That's like part two. Communication, as we know, communication is key. Being able to communicate about what you're working on, how you're feeling, giving feedback, and connecting with people, which kind of talks to people, is something that'll get you really far into tech. Um, you can be the best coder, the best engineer out there, but if you don't have that ability to have people buy in or connect with you, then it's going to be limiting to yourself. So being able to communicate like your strengths and being able to like connect with people. It doesn't have to be, hey girl, how are you connecting? It can be like, hi, I have feedback about this slide. I think this would be beneficial for our team. How are you doing? It can be very like a lightweight, but you definitely want to like hone in on that. That's something that it's so necessary in this industry. Also for process. So process, that's kind of like what I do. I operationalize and create process. That's what I've done. Actually, if I look back, my very first job, even when I was teaching in Thailand, the English department was very disorganized. And I started operationalizing it and making it more efficient. I just do that by habit. And now it's actually what I'm known for and one of my strengths, being able to take a project, a new launch, and breaking it down to pieces that I can easily deliver to different stakeholders, and just making it more operationalized, more efficient, and get the right people in. That's something that's one of my strengths and pretty much what I do in tech. And also like determination. And this, I think, is key. If you want to be in this space, you will get in this space, but you have to be determined. I have a story I can share. When I was at Uber, I had great managers, and one of my managers at Uber was also interviewing for Facebook. He was my manager, and I actually reported to him. He went through, I think, 2 years after I was at Facebook, we finally got him in. He made it to the last round interviews. And if you look at the referral list, 22 roles. Just someone else, they just picked somebody else, but he was always on between him and somebody else. And so we got him into Facebook, but it took him 2 years and 22 roles of saying no to something that he was very qualified for. And it wasn't that he wasn't qualified, just that they just went another way because they might have been looking for a different personality or trying to mix this one's strategic. We already have strategic. Let's look for a different strength from somebody. So there's multiple reasons, but you have to be determined and you have to continue to be like diligent when you're actually getting in this. Yes, perseverance is key. And so it's like it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Sometimes it can be. You can be a sprint to get in, but to navigate to where you want to be, that could be longer. It's ebbs and flows, goes up and down. Cool. Pause there. Isa, next slide. Okay. So this is something like why autumn? And I love that they have this question here. It's like, why would it be autumn? And one thing after I got into the space and have been leading like employee resource groups at Facebook and working with building one at TikTok is that we talk a lot about having a seat at the table. And when we talk about seat at the table, what does that mean or resonate with you guys? When we say seat at the table, like what is that? What are we talking about here? You're so shy.
Were you awake today, students?
Don't worry. Usually what happens when they're really this shy, next thing I know, after it's over, I go on my LinkedIn and there's like a paragraph. I'm like, oh, you
That's
were
what
up.
to say.
Oh, hi. Like you are here. So seat at the table, Jasmine. Miss Jasmine Brooks. Do you want to share? Ooh, I saw Desiree unmute. Someone will answer a question before we're done here because I will run out of a voice here. But so I sit at the table and what we, yeah, so Isa, my opinions and thoughts matter and contribute to the decision. Yeah, so a seat at the table is when you're working at a company, are you someone that's at the table where decisions are being made for the company? Do you have a voice in those decisions for the company? And not just for your team, for the overall company. So usually we're talking about, depending on the teams, it could be the VPs or the directors or the heads of different departments where they're actually the ones that can really influence change. And I say that because we can influence change at a different level. Like I manage a team and I'm right now allocating headcount for 2021. I can manage what my team will look like and how diverse I want my team to look like and what I want recruiters to go out to find for me, for my team. But when you're trying to do that for the whole org or have diversity, recruitment numbers and making sure we're all aligned, you need to have a seat at that table to actually make it more of an org-wide or company-wide initiative versus a team-wide initiative. So that's when we say a seat at the table. They're both great points, but when you have a seat at the table and you're in these like C-suite levels, or if you're at Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, he's talking to you, or Cheryl, those are the type of tables that you want to be on. But when you get there, it's very important for me that I have other people I brought with me. I know that like growing up, there was like, oh, there's always the joke, like, oh, there's already a Black person at the party. Like, oh, now there's two. Or like you see someone who looks like you and now they're competition. Because like, oh, it can only be one of us. And that's the mindset we need to move away from. Like there is actually, when you see someone who looks like you, that is not competition. That's now relationship. Hey, FYI, this is happening. Hey, what's going on with your project? Do you need help? You are building each other up so you guys can all actually be a part of these spaces. Yeah. And so that's what I am aiming to do in tech. It's when I'm moving up, who can be a team lead? Who do they have the resources with their managers, with their teams, that in order to have the support that they need and the visibility they need to move forward in their career? What we notice in tech is that there's like this gap. So entry-level roles out of college, let's say for sales or different roles, they'll fill them and you'll see a lot of diversity there. But then when you start moving up and there's like this gap, it's middle management, because they're either stuck in these individual contributor roles. So like entry-level specialists, they might've been there for 2 years, but they're not moving to like a team lead, a lead, or a manager role. And then they just leave and go somewhere else. And then when we're looking to fill, like, how come we don't have directors that look like us? We can't actually take them from internal because they all left because our pipeline, like we failed in the company, making sure there is a clear path for progress for everyone. There's an equal path for progress. And so in the companies, when you're moving up, for any role that you're on, just look around. Anytime I get promoted, someone I mentored usually got promoted too for whatever role they're doing. And if I'm the only one getting promoted around me and they're not, then I'm not doing something right. So that's kind of like my quote here, like have a seat at the table and make sure I have as many people there with me. Cool. Any questions on that? This is an open, safe space that's being recorded, so feel free. I always like it because I know that I can't say anything that I can come back later. So it keeps me in check. because Issa knows that it can go off topic real quick. Please, next slide. Yeah, so I wanted to chat a little bit just about my career growth and employment history there. And as well as I'll pause, you guys have any questions about like how these transitions worked. So as I told you, I graduated in 2014 from school, and I just left to Thailand. I didn't have a job. So I actually got a hotel for a month, took my TESOL, teaching English secondary language certification while I was in Thailand. And when I graduated, like 6 weeks later, I got on the back of a motorbike and just went to the top 4 government schools in Phuket. And I walked to the English department and asked if they were looking to hire English teachers. And that's how I got hired. So my second school I went to, which was a large government school, they interviewed me like the next day, which involves just teaching a random class. And I stayed there for a little bit over a year. And so that was great because I think that was, and just in my career, why that's important is that the first time I just left and did what I wanted to do to see if I can be successful. And I was able to be successful. I could stand on my own and just move and actually have some kind of career. I actually studied English literature with a secondary education emphasis. So like a teaching minor. And so so where I am right now in my career, I'm doing my MBA for fun. I mean, it must be the teacher in me, but I've been able to move to 3 tech companies and from an English lit degree. So yeah, look at Daniel. See, he's very interesting. He's like, oh, I also have an English major. How do I pivot? Yeah, so the jump, so I came back to the States. So here's how I moved to tech. I came back to the States and I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, because my sister was in medical school there or a residency there. And I was like, I want to be in tech. And this is where kind of like timing worked out with like what was happening. So I needed a job. That was 5 years ago, a little bit over 5 years ago. And Uber was opening up a center of excellence, which is pretty much a call center for driver and rider support. You would just answer driver and rider tickets. And so I actually applied. And I was like, okay, they're looking for 4-year degrees, like pretty much the bare minimum. So anyone, you have a 4-year degree, you can pass the interview. I can now be a contractor at Uber and work with Uber. Did not want to do driver or rider support, but I needed to get into something tech. I needed to have that on my resume so I can like start moving. And it was a new feature. So I'm like, okay, there must be room for mobility. So I actually applied and that's what I started. I started as a contractor. I think it was like $11 an hour contractor for 3 months. But Uber had a really cool setup. They don't have that now, where after 3 months, if you were still there, they would convert you to a full-time employee and you got restricted stock units, and you can actually start moving around the company. So as the driver support, they hired maybe, I think, 60 people at one time. So 60 of us starting from scratch, and they were building the center. So what I did, I worked all the overtime, and I was the fastest driver support and most accurate person in like my starting class. And because of that, I became the driver support lead to like manage the other driver support after the 3 months. So I had a manager, and then I was actually reported to them, and also like managed just the call center situation. But from there, while I was at Uber, they were launching other things like new products and testing out new products. And I started to show interest. And I was like, hey, like I can actually build, I'm an English lit major. I can actually build the comms for this. I can actually manage this. It's what I do. So I started kind of like, you have to have your own elevator pitch or like what you're good at. Like, hey, you're launching this new product. I don't do product, but what I can do is manage the team working on this. I can work with legal on communication for this to our drivers or our riders. I can do the follow-ups and the debriefs. I can even do the payments to our drivers. Just let me learn SQL really quick. I learned the bare minimum of SQL so that like I can like pull nationwide drivers' names. Everything else was like hand by hand, but they didn't know that I was doing SQL. Yeah. And so I think Daniel, so he says, what was the environment at Uber? So this was so when I worked at Phoenix, there's two parts of Uber, right? I worked at the call center part, and there's also the, like there's always like the main headquarters, and each tech company has their own. Uber's was based in San Francisco, and that's where all of the vice presidents, that's where Travis, who we called TK, who was the CEO at the time, that's where they were. So that was like the holy grail. Working at Uber itself, it was so fast, you didn't have time to take in the environment. You know, you have first time having free food, first time having stock units. So stock given to me after like a certain amount of time I was there. And the people we were just trying to launch something new. It was a startup. It was before they IPO'd or like ended up on the market. So we were there very early stage. So you don't have a lot of time to think about the environment or like the culture, which it was fun and tiring because you were just working many hats. Yeah. And so I was the marketing, I was the operations, I was paying out the drivers, and I was managing like the product relationships for any new product testing we were doing. So some I worked on were us launching Hertz for people to rent cars when their car was in. You know, others were like leasing cars to people who didn't have cars. So I was working many hats. It was very tiring, but that's also tech. If you're not tired, then you aren't doing it right when you start, because you need to get hungry and get a name for yourself. So it was fun. It was a fun year and a half. And the turning point from Uber to go to Facebook was actually interesting. So I was working at Uber product testing, and they wanted me to move to San Francisco to run marketing for these products I was supporting. I have no marketing background, but I was doing marketing because you just learn on the go. We actually, so I actually paid a resume writer to update my resume because I had a teaching resume, but I needed one that was more specific to what they wanted me to do, which was like marketing. So I paid a resume writer, and they met with me, they took my old resume and they created one, marketing. And so I sent them an updated resume, Uber, for like this role they wanted me to consider. And I also paid for the LinkedIn service where they update my LinkedIn to make it more operational, marketing, tech space, instead of like, I was an English teacher in Thailand, you know, that's not really like pulling people in. So after I did that, I interviewed at an Uber, and they offered me the role, and we were going through negotiations. But we stalled at negotiations. And I say this because understanding, like, I think it's very important to understand your value and like your worth for like what's being asked of you. So me getting into tech was $11 an hour, but I needed to get into the door, and I was willing to have that, like, just to get in order to like start moving in the way I wanted to. But relocating to San Francisco with the work that I did, they were asking for below the market value for the work that they were requesting for me. So we actually have very long negotiations about the pay that I was asking for and trying to meet in the middle, and we weren't meeting in the middle. But the last day they were sending me my last offer, Facebook reached out on LinkedIn. And they said, hey, I said, hi, Facebook. And they said, would you be interested in a role maybe in Austin, Texas? We think like your LinkedIn matches what we're looking for. And I was like, if there's not a sign, I never thought about me going to Facebook. Like, I was in Phoenix, Arizona, working at Uber as my first tech company. And I said, yeah. So that day they sent the final offer for my salary, and it was still too low. And I just said, no. I said, no, I'll just stay here and work the current role. We're not happy. And I started interviewing for Facebook. And they, for that process, and we can talk kind of about what that process looks like. That process was interesting in a sense that interviewing at Uber was just like, do you have a heartbeat and do you have a 4-year degree? Honestly, that's what it was when they were launching. Interviewing at Facebook was much more intense because they were checking, do you fit with the culture? How do you strategize and think through like different scenarios that are extremely vague, fake countries, fake ideas. How do you actually like think through that, right? And then next would be how do you think through that? And then also what makes you so unique for like this role? And so when I was going to the Facebook operations role, I focused on my strengths, which was honestly building relationships and winning others over is what got me my job. And we laugh because that is what got me my job, because I was able to develop instantly some kind of like connection with them. So I know in my initial interview, we were just talking about, he came in and I had a laptop, but I also, this was 5 years ago, 5 years ago almost, don't judge me, but I played Pokemon Go when it came out. I was very addicted. We spent half of our time talking about Pokemon Go and like what level I was on, because I was on a very advanced level at that time. He didn't even ask me his interview questions. He said, no. He goes, you know what? I think you would fit here. And then we went to like the next interview, I'm just like building relationships. So I'm understanding what the ask was. I'm like, yeah, I can execute in operations, but it's also, these are my strengths. What things that aren't my strengths, I'm not going to be a strategic partner at that time. I am now a strategic partner to go ahead and analyze the risk associated with these launches. I don't have that context, but this is what I can do. I can operationalize it. I can tell you where the gaps are. I can make sure stakeholders are aligned. I can get people across the board globally. This is what I'm good at. And if that's what you're looking for, then I'll be good for the role. And so pause there, because I know we have to hit the TikTok soon. But does anyone have like initial questions about just kind of like the leap? It's from English to like getting into the tech space?
I just have one quick question about like how you said that how you started off like at $11 an hour, and yeah, you got to start somewhere. But I was just curious because does it matter like what you get your degree in? Like, say you do get a degree in tech, would it matter? Would you like wind up still getting a job? Like starting off like that.
No.
Would it help like me get a better job starting off? I mean, I would assume getting out of college, I would get a,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. That's like a two-part question. It's a really good question. So this is about 5-6 years ago. Like, I think Facebook had IPO'd, Uber had it. Uber was still a startup. It was popular, but it was still a startup. So I entered in as a startup, which is different if I would enter in night and day if I joined Facebook. So no, like, so Daniel, if you were like finishing your degree, and let's say you don't need a degree, it depends on what you want to do in tech. And this is what I tell people. There's two types of people in tech that reach out to me. I want to be in tech. Why? Oh, like it's tech, it's Facebook, like the name or like the idea of tech is good to them. Which roles? Oh, any role. No.
Well, I'm more interested in like kind of like knowing how things work and doing things like, I know it's good to work on a team. Like I could work on a team, but I'd rather, I get more stuff done on my own. And also, I guess, I don't know. I just like to take things apart and know how it works. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So when you say
no, over there.
So when you say knowing how it works, it can work. It depends on which company you're at. Not all companies are the same. I know Issa's company, I think they have a similar track, but Facebook. So Uber had a track where you were a specialist or you manage people. There wasn't an individual track where you can just, be a very senior level person that like no one reports to, and you can just do these great things with cross-functional partners, still be very impactful, but you didn't have a team. At the time I was there. So you had like one course, you wanted to move up and to get a bonus and to get promotion, you were like a specialist to a team lead to a manager, moving up that way. So very like corporate and standard. It might have changed now. When I moved to Facebook, you're brought in as levels. So this might be more interesting to you. Where you're brought in as levels. So you're brought in at level, let's say 3, 4, 5. 5 is more like manager. So you're brought in at level 3, and that level has expectations. For a level 3, no one's going to report to you. You will have a manager, right? But you're working on a team, but you might work on your own specific projects. When you go to 4, that's when you can start making decisions. So 4, you can either follow the track where you're still reporting to a manager, but you're like, you're like Daniel. Daniel's like, I don't want to actually manage a team. I would rather manage projects and be the
Yeah, that sounds more.
project.
Yeah, that definitely
And
sounds
so-
better.
Yeah, and so Facebook has that track. And so that's a track that I carved out for myself when I was at Facebook, being on a team for community operations. I started working on these, test projects with them. So I was working on these very specific projects where I worked with nobody on my team, and I worked with all cross-functional global partners. And then people realized I was really good at that. So then they asked me to lead a team. And when I say lead a team, it was just me reporting to a manager, but I would actually lead the products and the process launches for all of our global asks. So I would manage the vendors. So if I needed a team to work on something in another country, I would create their contract and work with their workforce management to make sure they hit my deliverables. But no one at Facebook reported to me. I only worked with the product team in like New York, or I would fly to Germany or Italy or Taiwan. And I just work with my teams that I have there who are supporting very specific products. But I didn't want to manage people at Facebook. I wanted to do my own thing and be held accountable. So I followed that track until I left. And so you can do it. It just depends on like the company. And also you can do it as a company, but also when you start understanding what you're really good at. So if you want to be on that track, what does that track look like for you? So the track is like, I just don't want to manage people. I work good at taking things apart. Look at some job recs at tech companies. What roles are taking things apart? Because taking things apart could be multiple things, right? Taking things apart, you can take apart a process and build it back up. You can take apart, so there's so many parts that you can go and so many avenues. So focusing on what you mean by take apart, and then you start building your brand around what you're really good at. And I say that because it's a good segue, Danielle. I say building your brand is that I did that at Facebook New Products, and people knew I did that. So at TikTok, when I was being referred, they were offering me a few roles. They were like, okay, you can manage this team here. This team does something similar that you do, or kinda, and you can manage this team, or you can, manage our quality team, or you can do this or that. But yeah, next slide. But I didn't want to actually manage people. I wanted to do new product launches, working closely with product and working with our Beijing team. That's what I wanted. And so I was able to tell them that's what I want. And then they created a job rec that was focused on what I wanted to do because of how people know from the back end, from other companies, how I'm able to execute. So I was able to create a role for myself at a new company that doesn't exist. So the role that I have where I only report to the head of our operations and the head of S&B doesn't exist in any other market, but as a role I crafted out for myself by knowing my strengths. So that's kind of like a quick little tidbit there. But we can always feel free to message me on LinkedIn, have more detailed questions about that and what that looks like for that trajectory. I'll be more than happy. We can go into detail on that one. So quickly, this will be a short one. Why a career in technology? I feel like it's always important to be your authentic self and tell the truth. Number one is money. I like the salary, I like the benefits, and I like having stock. Tech is one of the only, and it's kind of part number 4 as well, where you can get into it, you can get into tech, and in a very short amount of time as compared to other corporations or other standard companies, you can move up. I started as a contractor 5 years ago, and now I lead our North America product operations for TikTok. So, and that's in 5 years, right? So like there's so much you can move and there's so many benefits, and it's just, that's the most appealing part to me. It's also never boring. So I know we were talking earlier about like the multiple hats you hold that I held in Uber and the ones I was doing at Facebook when I had my own team, and I'm doing a similar thing right now, like full context. It's not boring. It's very tiring and exciting, just for like visibility, because I work closely with our TikTok partners that are based in Beijing. I have mostly night meetings. So I'm an interim manager for a team right now, just filling that until we fill the headcount. But I also have, so I now have a US team that I manage and my own new products that I manage. So from about 7:30 in the morning until 11:45 p.m. last night, I was in meetings except for 1 hour, back to back. And then woke up this morning for a data meeting. But I have my Friday kind of free. So I'm going to get a pedicure. But it's just, crazy times like that. But it's never boring. If you're bored, you're not doing it right, which is what I really like. If you like fast, action-packed, think on your feet, tech is it. Transferable skills. The transferable skills, I say this because people sometimes think you have to have this sort of degree, you have to have this sort of background to get in the door. Operations is different than sales, which is different than our data analytics teams, which are different than our product teams. There's so many avenues to get in. And right now there's so many, our recruiting teams are being siloed where they're actually looking intentionally for certain groups, like for veterans. We have a group, I know at Facebook, I think they're building one at TikTok, where a vet can show like what they did in the military, and we can transfer that, how it would transfer to the tech space in order to get them in the door. I'm working with someone who was working in oil and gas, or like she was working in oil and gas, sent me her resume. I was able to send it to one of my contacts saying, how do we make this tech? Because I don't know what any of these words mean, but we need to like make this tech so she can start applying for tech roles. So transferable skills in and out. It's always going to be high demand. And you learn a lot just on things that you didn't know, that you knew, just come to you like a year later. You're like, oh yeah, I did learn that. The next one is able to progress in your career. I think I touched on that for number one. The progression and how you're able to build wealth, and not even wealth, like generational wealth. And that's something that's a whole nother topic, where it's not just for yourself, but how you're able to set up family for success and continue to, so we continue to build this generational wealth, because we do have that gap in our own communities. And so that's super important. Also the people. I know it's 5, so it seems like it's like my least, but like it's only like 5 things here, but it's not like my least. The people in tech are great. You spend so much time with them. I'm actually socially distancing, working outside with my other managers that work on different parts of my org today. We do it once a week. We'll sit at different tables and we just kind of like yell to each other or still type, but we're like in our vicinity. We hang out. We go on our Peloton together. It's just personalities are just so varied. It's really opened you up. And I think it's like one of the healthiest things I've done is like meet people in my tech space and just like be open-minded and understanding to different backgrounds. It makes you just a well-rounded individual, as well as just like the way you work with people changes so much once you're like part of those conversations. Okay, next slide. Thank you. Oh yeah, so I'm not reading all this, obviously. I get kind of crazy when it comes to PowerPoints. It's my bad. But if you're interested in a similar journey, I know that we talked a little bit. I know Daniel has some questions. These are things that I like learn, or things that I've talked to a lot of my mentees about. I talked to my mentees about is that know your strengths. Most tech companies, we're strength-based companies. And so does anyone know what I mean when I say we're strength-based? Thank you, Daniel. Yes, cool. So if you know what strength-based, what should you do about your weaknesses?
Work on them.
On the weekend. We're a strength-based company. You can work on it, but understand that's not why you were hired. So sometimes what people see, they'll enter the companies, and what we have is what we call imposter syndrome. And I'm not sure if that's been brought up to you guys before, or what imposter syndrome it means. But in a tech company, we all get it at some point in our, either we're switching jobs, getting a promotion, anything, we have imposter syndrome. And what that means is that we're like, oh, I shouldn't be here. Like, am I actually qualified to what they're asking me to do? Should they have brought somebody in? Look at Jackie over there. She just made this amazing PowerPoint, and I'm sitting here like, did they, like, how, like, am I worthy to be here? It's like imposter syndrome. Like, where do I fit in? Should I be here? Yeah, you don't feel worthy. Like, did they make a mistake? Am I going to be embarrassed? Should I start looking for another job because this isn't going to work out? So we start having those thoughts. And one way that I found to help, like, kind of combat or calm down those thoughts, they'll always be there, and they're just part of it. So you shouldn't, they're just part of you. But one way to combat that would be to not compare yourself to other people's strengths that aren't your strengths. So if you see Jackie, she is amazing at data on your team. So all the data asks are coming to her, and data is not your strength. Like, the goal isn't for you to try to be a better data person than Jackie, because you will actually never be a better data person than Jackie if that's her strength. Because what it is, if your strength is relationship building, and you're here with relationship building, if someone is here with relationship building, they work on it, what they can get to is maybe here. Because you can't get to someone who's just like, that's what they do. You're not going to reach their level. So if Jackie's a data person here, and you're like here at data, even if you try hard, you'll maybe make it here, but you're still not Jackie. And you spent all that time trying to be Jackie when you could have just been, while you were hired, building those relationships, build cross-functional relationships, build global. So focus on your strengths, but I say you can work on your weaknesses, but that's not why you were hired. So like for me, for example, I'm getting my MBA, but I'm already in a tech space and it's progressing well. I can't complain. But one of my weaknesses that I know, or something I'm not that familiar with, I don't know if it's a weakness, I'm not just familiar with it, is that strategic underlying base that you have when you have a business background. Because I was liberal arts, I'm missing that base where I'm like strategic planning, headcount allocation, how to look at a business in a global level versus like a smaller team level. I don't have that. I've never went to school for that, or I only followed up when I need to. I need to do headcount allocation, which is what I'm doing today. So headcount planning for 2021. I connected with some people, read some articles, and now I'm going to do headcount planning. But I wanted to get like a school version of headcount planning because I also have a teaching background. I do love school. So I'm actually getting my MBA from that. But I do know without my MBA, I'll still have a path, but this is more for me. And it's not because, oh no, I'm not going to move up at TikTok if I don't have this MBA. Like I know what I'm good at. They know what I'm good at. I keep refining that. And it's what will get me to the next step. Not me learning how to do a head count, because I can just hire a head count to do my head count planning if I need to, right? Cool. 2, check your resume. I talked on that, but resumes are very important and just for recruiters. And so I speak to a lot of recruiters, have a lot of recruiter friends at our different tech companies, and you can imagine how many for each job rec they get. They have piles of qualified candidates that technically can hit all the marks and can go through an interview, but they have to parse through who that person would be. And the easiest way for them to do it, and this is feedback time and time again, is that your resume speaks to the role. So if you have a resume and it's like your standard resume used for everything, and let's say you worked at department stores, managing department stores, and then you want to be a product manager. Well, maybe I can see in your bullet points where you maybe have some product experience, but your resume needs to read that if I were to not know what role you were going for, I could look at your resume and say, oh yeah, that person could apply for a product role. And so that's what they're looking for. So check your resume. I personally don't write my own resumes. When I update them, I just pay someone to do it. A, it's fun to talk to them. B, they have a different viewpoint of how my resume could be written versus me. But it's not a cheap process. I think it was like $200 for her to write my resume, and then maybe an extra 50 or 75 to throw in the LinkedIn update. I will say that contributed to me being seen after Uber by Facebook. But right now I don't need it in my career because I already have 3 tech companies to move in tech. So I'm already being sought after. But for when I was transitioning or getting in, that was really helpful. Be strategic. So I want to say be strategic in your roles. Be strategic when you're getting in the door of something that you can do and you can do well, but it doesn't have to be your dream role. So for me, and I'm very open with like my team and where I'm going, I am more aligned to product than I am to like daily operations. And what that means is that like the back end part of operations for tech companies where I entered and sometimes still support like quality analysis, our queues where content is actioned and reviewed. So say you report something on a platform for a violation and it's reviewed by a team, that's more like the back end operations. That's more of the back end operations. It has a warm place in my heart, but for me to stretch myself, I'm more interested in a product and like which products are we launching, how do we launch them, and are we launching them well? That's where I want to go. And I knew that it wasn't going to be I'm here, sure I can operationalize, now I want to be a product manager or run product. Being a product manager is very tricky to get into. You said, I'm not sure you have from your guys' side, people want to be a product manager, but it's a doozy, right? And so, go ahead.
Also, you're someone, if you're detail oriented, that's all for you. If you're in the process, that's you.
Yeah, and you can think you're detail oriented. I'm very detail oriented on the operation side. Then the second I went to my product meeting, and I said, what is this flow chart? What? Oh, no, I'm not ready. Okay. How close can I get to product? And so right now I'm kind of on that path where I work closely with product for new product launches in US. So I make sure they're ready to go, talk to product. I'm not in the weeds of like creating what this looks like when the product idea is happening to when it hits me, but I'm in a happy spot right now where I'm still influencing how this product will launch in this North America market. And then like I plan on getting a little bit closer, but I'm not there yet. But this has been something I'm thinking about for almost 3 years since I was in operations. And so it's happening, but I'm not there yet. But I'm strategically placing myself in positions where I will get to where I want to be. Something important here is, yes, talk about your goals. So talk to your friends, mentors, people about your goals. Like, if you know people in this space, be open about where you see yourself in the future. I've been able to remember, oh yeah, someone said they were interested in this, and like recheck my LinkedIn or check my Facebook or my Instagram, wherever they message me, and like try to like search for the name. And I was able to find someone saying, hey, 2 months ago, you said you're looking at this role. We actually had one open up. Do you want me to refer you? And so be open about where you want to be, because I also hold you accountable to make sure you continue on your journey, because it's very lonely if you do it. It's very hard and lonely journey if you take it alone. So have people buy in and like pump you up. Stay focused. When I say this, stay focused on what's meant for you. So what's meant for you in this journey will happen. Don't be distracted of what other people have. Talk about what other people have, because it'll take you off your track. I went to a speech. I'm not sure you guys know Bozeman St. Cloud. She's the new CMO, Chief Marketing Officer for Netflix. She's phenomenal. If you haven't like heard her speak, She does like badass workshops. She's just everything that I want to grow up to be, but she's great. But she had a talk and she says, she's talking about, and they had a great analogy for mail. She's saying the mail that comes to your door is for you because your name's on it, right? And if a mail comes to you, but your name's not on it, it wasn't for you. So if your name's not on it, it's not yours, it's somebody else's. So you don't need to worry about what someone else is getting in the mail. You need to worry about what's for you. Stay focused on that. And that's really helped keep me focused and like focus on my path and not what might be happening with my neighbor or another manager and what their progress would look like. Because you actually don't know what's happening with them day to day. We just see the end result. You know, oh, she's a lead. She led Black At. She's, you know, doing talks. She's doing presentations. But like the path to get there was a very bumpy path for me. But have healthy competition. I say this because healthy competition to me is look for people that you admire and are pushing themselves and let that be your motivation. Say, huh, she really stepped her game up on that. Let me step my game up as well. Let me match her energy. And so have healthy competition with people. And if that helps boost you and keep you going, love it. I have it every single day. Yeah, and it's pretty exciting. So I'll stop there because I think that's my last slide. Woo. Yes,
Just in
thank
time. That was a really good presentation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. No, it's my pleasure. I know we went through a lot, and we just talked about like the journey, you know, the journey getting from like school and that, but there's so many different backgrounds of where people come from. I support multiple organizations. I support like the Seedling Foundation here in Austin. You guys know they actually do mentorship programs for people who have at least one parent incarcerated. There's all these like Autumn, there's all these different opportunities where you guys are like directing people to say that there's a path in tech for you. And you don't have to have an internship. You don't have to have this connection to get here. Like I started in tech at 30, a little bit over 30, like 31 or so. You know, I grew up partially in foster care. You know, like the path to get here wasn't linear, but you can get here. So you don't have to like think that you have to have all these checks and balances to get into this space. You don't. You just have to know what you want and then surround yourself with people who will get you there. And then like you're good to go. Cool.
Does anybody have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
All right, make sure to reach out to Antoinette. She is a wealth of knowledge, definitely full of different stories, experiences that you can, relate with. If you have any questions, Antoinette, we can share. I'll go back to the front page. We will share your LinkedIn information.
I typed it really small. Let me put it in here. Let me put it inside the little chat.
I know a lot of you created your LinkedIns over the break or before break when we were doing it. So get on there and connect.
There you go. I just sent it in the chat.
Definitely.
That's what it is. Yeah, it seems right. But yeah. All right, you guys.
And if you're also looking to perfect your LinkedIn, don't forget on our app, we have a LinkedIn training or tutorial to show you how to make the best LinkedIn page. That's on our app. Go to autumntx.com and go to get trained on our tabs at the top, and you can follow our app there. But this has been a really awesome session. Hit it right here at 12 o'clock. If you have any questions, reach out to Antoinette or myself or autumn.com and become one of our community members. You can get all the information we have. Julie mentioned we have a resume review blitz that will start on the 14th. So please submit your resume. Julie has the link for you to submit it on one of our forums. You'll get your resume back on the 18th. And we look forward to having you there.